Hello, welcome to SwitchedOn Gaming, Paul speaking, and welcome to my look at a brand new game coming to the Nintendo Switch, and this is Disco Elysium, the Final Cut. This comes out tomorrow, the 12th of October, and comes from Elysium Games, and will set you back £35.99, $39.99. Just going to take a quick look at this massive game and tell you my thoughts on it. So, if you don't know what Disco Elysium is, it's a massive role-playing game that's been out a couple of years. It released a sort of little fanfare really, and then started picking up so many Game of the Year awards. It's become massively popular in the genre, and it's just, you know, a great example of how narrative can come together in a game, a huge amount of narrative, and just make the game on another level. It's just so narratively driven. And it's just massively impressive for it. So you play a detective who wakes up just about in his hotel room after a heavy night on the tiles. Can't remember anything about himself. Can't remember who he is, why he's there. And he gradually starts to piece together not only his own life, but the purpose of why he's in this town of Revechol, which is in a district called Martinez. And he starts piecing together a murder that's taken place that he was here to investigate, and then by speaking to the people in the town and his colleague that he finds eventually, Kim Katsuragi, they start to piece together the problem that's before them. This is a, as I say, narratively driven game. Previously, the first version when it came out was very much just you basically reading walls and walls of text, which I'll be honest put me off. I've had this game a year or two, and it really did put me off because, it was a lot of reading. The Final Cut version, which has come to consoles and now comes to Nintendo Switch, which this version is now fully voiced with over 1 million words, and it's just every character has their own unique voice, and it's just absolutely perfect. I've yet to find a character or a voice in the game that doesn't suit them, and the narrator in particular is absolutely superb. A really well voiced character. Now, the idea of the game, as I say, is you're a cop investigating the murder of someone in this town, but what you don't do is much action. There's no sort of fighting or combat or anything like that, but what you do have, the game is based around these skill checks. So imagine like a tabletop RPG, and you're rolling dice to pass skill checks. And the skill checks are based on these characteristics of your character. They're basically the psyche of your character. And it's just such a brilliant idea. It took me a couple of hours to get my head around it, but when you do, you realise what such a clever system this is. So you've got these 4 categories of skills: intellect, psych, physique, and motorics, and within each of those you've got subcategories. So in intellect you've got the skills of logic, encyclopedia, rhetoric, drama, conceptualization, and visual calculus. Each of these gives you different abilities, normally passive abilities, and you can see on the right hand side there's a little bit of information about each skill, and then if you tab across you've got more in-depth information about what that skill does actually in the world. And you level up these skills as you use them in the world, and then as you increase them, you will unlock, more passive things in the game. For example, visual calculus you use early on when you're investigating a crime scene. If your visual calculus isn't high enough, you won't get the chance to look at some of the evidence that's possibly on the ground, and you just completely will miss things. So you can play through this game multiple times with different sorts of builds of characters. Putting your skills into different things. You become like an all-knowing kind of Sherlock Holmes type character, or you become someone that's basically brute forces their way through, interviewing people. But each time you play through the game, you will have a different experience, depending on where your skills are. As I say, sometimes you will even completely miss things in one playthrough. They just won't show up for you if you haven't got the skills to pick them up. So it's very, very cool. Now the controls, obviously the PC version would use mouse and keyboard, lots of keyboard shortcuts. On a console, you are using the controller mainly, And I think it's good and bad here. I think what they've done with it is probably as good as they can do without having an on-screen cursor, which I think would be quite unwieldy, but we've seen that before in console RPG games where you're shifting a cursor around with your right stick. What they've done instead is have these highlighted areas on the map, little green, yellow, red dots, blue dots, that represent your different areas of psyche. So you can see here, intellect is blue, psyche is purple, physic is red, and motorics is yellow. So the things you can spot in the world will be based on those. And again, coming back to if you've got the skills to see it. So for example, this shop I'm in here, there's a green dot on the counter that relates to, I think it's your vision. It's not one of these skills, but I think it's just your general vision. But if your skill isn't high enough there, you just won't see it. And then you use the right stick to highlight those elements in the world. So you can see here, using my right stick to sort of cycle through the different things just by pointing in their direction. Sometimes your detective will have a ring around them with one of those coloured dots on, the blue, yellow, red or purple dots. And you can, again, use your right stick while you're walking around to sort of highlight those circles around your character, and that's sort of things that you have spotted in the world or things that you should go and check out. So highlighting that and then pressing either the A button or the right bumper button will send your detective over to investigate. Now with the controls, as I say, I think that's pretty good. As I say, I think that's a pretty good way of doing it, but also sometimes it's a little bit unresponsive. Like you can highlight an area, and even though you've got it highlighted and you press the right button, your character just won't do anything. So you have to kind of move around in the world and come back to it and try again, which can be a little bit annoying. But, you know, I wouldn't say it's massively game breaking. It doesn't happen all the time. But I do like the way that they've given you the option of using the right bumper button with the right stick, because obviously if you're using the right stick with your thumb, you've then got to take your thumb off of that to press the A button. It's just a little bit, you know, unwieldy. But the fact that you can use the R bumper button to highlight, or, you know, to action the area that you've highlighted, means that you don't have to take your finger off the right stick, which works really well. So I don't want to spoil too much of the gameplay, or certainly don't want to spoil too much of the story here. So I'll just tell you so far that the writing is absolutely superb, very sucks you in incredibly. The characters do, the mysteries, the way that your psyche talks to you internally, like the internal monologues, and they will start discussing things with each other. So your logic will start talking to your visual calculus, and then it will be, you know, interrupted by, you know, one of your other personality traits, and they'll start having a little argument. You've got these multiple choices as well when you're having this conversation, so you can very heavily influence which direction the story goes and how you find the answers. So it's a really cool game. If you like RPGs, then you will definitely like this one. If you're not a fan of reading lots of stuff and maybe slower paced games, then I don't think there's going to be too much here that's going to change your mind. But it really is a game that you need to experience. It's one of the best narratively written RPG games that I've played, and it's just, you know, it deserves those Game of the Year awards that it got. I'm just going to come away from the car now. In terms of the Switch port, I think it's brilliantly done. It looks absolutely superb. The graphics are brilliant. The whole town is just perfect. There's very little performance issues. I've seen a couple of slowdowns, but, you know, it's tiny and it really doesn't affect the game. Obviously, it's a slower paced game, so you've got no worries here. But, you know, it's minuscule, the performance issues. All the sound voice acting is here, as you'd expect, in the Final Cut version. It's really well done, and it's just a game that I would just massively recommend. Check it out for yourself. Enjoy the mysteries. So this is out on Tuesday the 12th. Got any questions? Please leave them below. For me, this is one of the best games on the Switch, and what a trio of games that have come out in the last few days. You've got this, you've got Metroid Dread, and you've got Tetris Effect Connected. A brilliant few days for Switch owners. Going to be hurting your wallet, but again, this is another one that I just massively recommend that you check out. So, as I say, leave me a comment below, subscribe if you're new, give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed the video, really appreciated, and I will see you all next time. Thanks for watching, and bye bye.